Hi, my name is Jessica Hubbard, and Heidi and I think a little bit alike because I'm here today to tell you that my big idea is that every job should be a corporate social responsibility job. Corporate social responsibility, or CSR, goes by a lot of different names. Corporate philanthropy, shared value, corporate citizenship, but whatever the buzzword, I think it has a pretty simple definition. It's that companies should engage with the social issues that create risks and opportunities for their business, and that if they do so, they have an opportunity to drive positive impact for both the company as well as for the broader community. So the field has evolved a lot over the past 20, 30 years. Historically, corporate social responsibility, really just corporate philanthropy at the time, was very much held apart from the business. The core business made money, and then the corporate foundation or the corporate giving group gave a little bit of it away, probably to whatever pet cause the CEO had at that time. Starting around the 80s or 90s, companies started to get a little bit strategic with their giving, mostly aligning to either public relations goals or human resources goals. So how can we give to a cause that reinforces our brand? Or how can we create an employee volunteerism program that makes employees more loyal? Definitely more strategic, definitely more aligned with business goals, but still something apart from the core business. Around the beginning of, around 10 or 15 years ago, I'd say, give or take, companies started getting a little bit more integrated, and that's when the term more frequently became corporate social responsibility. Started thinking about not just how you use your resources to sort of outsource social impact to the nonprofit sector, but how you also re-engineer your business operations to have a direct positive impact, again, on your core business as well as on the community. That's when you started seeing a lot more attention to sustainability, started seeing some companies do things like create products that address a social need while also having a clear business model. But again, getting closer and closer to the center, but still too often on the fringes. In the past couple of years, Professor Michael Porter over at the Business School and Mark Kramer of FSG Social Impact Advisors produced one of their series of articles on this topic, this one introducing the concept of shared value. And again, we're getting a little bit closer to the center. They define shared value as creating economic value in a way that also creates value for society by addressing its needs and challenges. But importantly, they also say that this can't happen on the margins. This can't happen on at the fringes. It has to be part of the core operations of the business. So if you think about this progression, it means really important things for the jobs of people who work at companies. It means that no longer can the social impact be owned by people like me, people whose jobs are in corporate social responsibility, but instead they have to be owned by the people in the core business. The business units have to own the company's social impact. If we're saying that companies are aligning their business goals with their social impact goals, what we're saying is that the people who own those business goals have to be the ones responsible for creating the social impact. This is actually, I found this quite recently in my own job that this is really critical. One project I've been struggling with to some degree recently is I'm responsible for creating a responsible paper policy for our company. We're a publisher, so one of the biggest ways that we impact the environment is by the choices we make about paper, what kind we use, how it's treated over the course of our supply chain, how much we use, and so on. But I'm not an expert in paper. The people who work in our paper procurement group are experts. I'm not. They also, I could write a policy, but I'm not going to be there for the hundreds of large and small decisions through which that policy is executed. So what I need to do, what I've learned, is I need to support my colleagues who are actually in this business to be the ones who create the policy, to be the ones who own the policy, to be the ones who feel accountable to both our social impact as well as the business impact of implementing that policy. Ultimately, what this means is that employees in every department, finance, HR, marketing, product development, supply chain, across the board, are not only have the opportunity to have a positive social impact through their day job, but actually are responsible for the company's social impact. So what does this mean for you? I think it's pretty exciting because it means that no matter where your passion lies, you have an opportunity to change the world. If you're interested in finance, go to an investment fund and think about how you can invest not only in companies that certainly have a high financial return, but also companies that have a significant social impact. If you're interested in operations, if that's your passion, then think about how you can improve your company's supply chain to reduce the environmental impact or to engage with populations that are too often marginalized. If you're obsessed with products, if it's all about the latest iPhone for you, then go someplace where you can think about not only how you delight your customers, but also how you address real health and educational and economic challenges in their life, so that you're doing it in a way where there's a real business model, but also where you're really changing the world. What does this mean for people like me? I mean, am I writing myself out of a job by making this suggestion? I think that my job goes from being carrying out the company's social impact to instead empowering my colleagues to carry it out. My job becomes about being a trainer and an educator, that the CSR staff's role is then to inspire their colleagues to engage in this kind of work, as well as to make sure they have the information, the context, the knowledge they need to have this kind of impact. My role becomes that of an internal consultant, advising business units about how to think about CSR strategy. And very much a connector between drawing the connections between internal and external stakeholders who see a similar issue but can approach it from a lot of different angles. Ultimately, I think the CSR group's role, instead of owning social impact, is to be in business development for social impact, in sales for social impact, so that their job is to grow the footprint of the way the company thinks about the community in which it operates. I also think that this model increases our reliance on CSR thought leaders, so the professors, the writers, the consultants, the researchers, who themselves advance this field and evangelize for this kind of work. I think that for this is going to happen, we need our universities and our business schools to participate in this as well. We need this idea to be introduced to students relatively early in their academic career, because for many people, this is just an idea that doesn't necessarily come intuitively until you've seen it operate in other cases. I think schools, and at least in my experience, do a pretty good job at talking about the responsibility side of CSR, child labor and environmental impact and so on and so forth, but very little about the opportunity side, the fact that you can actually make money and improve your business's health by engaging in these kinds of issues. Of course, we need to make sure that this kind of coursework isn't segregated into classes that are just about CSR, but rather permeate a wide range of courses, certainly in business, but in other disciplines as well. So what can you do about this today? I would encourage you to think creatively and ambitiously about your career choices, and to realize that to engage in wherever you have a passion, but do it in a way where you recognize that you have an opportunity and indeed a responsibility to drive your company's social impact. And the problem is at this point in the game, no one's going to ask you, in your annual review, your manager is not going to ask you, what did you do to drive our company's business goals by engaging in the community? So that's a question you're going to have to ask yourself. You're going to have to take responsibility yourself for that piece of your career. I also think it's a question that you need to ask of your employers. Heidi mentioned that one of the major drivers behind CSR for a lot of companies is the fact that employees care. So if you go out and tell your companies that not only do you care about what the company does for the community, but you care about being part of that change. And you care about it not only as an employee volunteer, but as doing it as part of your core business, and then you show them you can do it, then we can make every job a CSR job. Thank you.